Hello, and welcome to our podcast, Female Health 101, hosted by KMM Sanity Therapies Consultancy Services. And I am Kristina Matej.
And I am Hetal Amin, and today we have a really exciting session for you, and I'm going to hand back over to Kristina for more details.
Yes, I am a little bit nervous and also excited, and you soon find out why. And that's because today we're doing something quite different. We will show you what therapy looks like. And I'll explain what I mean by that. I believe, and Heather believes, of course, as well, that therapy is really, really important. We're both therapists, as you know, and it's a big part of our work. And we both also kind of surrounded by people who are therapists, who are in therapy. So we kind of live in this kind of bubble of, oh, everyone knows what therapy is and everyone loves it and it's so good for everyone. But every time we kind of step out of that bubble, we figure like, oh, people don't necessarily know what therapy looks like or what it can bring to them, how it can benefit them, or what it actually feels like and looks like. So we decided to showcase that, and I am the guinea pig. So I've had years of therapy. I feel quite comfortable being therapied, and I don't feel like I have anything to hide. So I'm very happy um, to be the subject of therapy. But of course, friends can't be therapists for each other. It just doesn't work. So we've invited someone to do this for us. And that someone is Chris Ward. He's a really lovely human being, an incredible therapist, and he works very much in the same ethos than Hetal and I work. So we feel like it really showcases our work as well as his. Um, and he will later explain exactly what he does and will share all his details. But first of all, I will introduce Chris so you know who I'm talking to and who you're listening to. So, Chris Ward is a registered nurse for mental health and UKASFP accredited solution focused practitioner. He helps creative people find happiness and success through his private practice, Chris Ward Solution Focused Services. So he's completed his nurse training in 1996 and then worked in various NHS and private hospital settings in several cities until 2009, when he seized the opportunity to apply his skills and experience to help people negotiate the trials and tribulation of higher education. He worked at University of Surrey until 2022. His introduction to solution-focused practice in 2017 was through Brief, the world's leading center for the approach. They awarded his a certificate in solution-focused practice a year later, following 8 days training and submission of written paper. His enthusiasm for an ongoing journey forwards mastery of the approach has been fueled by his membership of the Solution Focused Universe, or SFU, a groundbreaking online learning community set up and run by his friend and mentor, Elliot Coney. He has obtained his accreditations through the United Kingdom Association for Solution Focused Practice. And he is here with us today to showcase his amazing work. And as I said, I'm slightly nervous, but also very excited. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for the introductions. Very nice to be here.
And I think if you're ready, we can just jump into it
Okay.
and do the session. So Hetal will disappear for a little bit and just observe, and then we'll have a chat about the session when we're finished. So just sit yourself back, get your cup of tea, imagine that you fly on a wall of a session, and I've just entered Chris's therapy room, sat myself down, and here we go.
Right. So, Kristina, what are your best hopes from our talking today?
Chris, I actually been feeling a little bit anxious the last week or so, um, and I can't completely pinpoint it. So I think I just like some guidance on that and figure it out what's going on and how to calm myself.
Okay. So yeah, if we manage to do that successfully, then what would you hope to be experiencing instead of being anxious?
Ah, I would like to feel grounded, calm, resourceful. Yeah, just
Okay.
less jittery. I feel a bit, buzzy.
Yeah, okay. So grounded, calm, and resourceful.
Mm.
So if our talking this morning gives you a sense at the end of it, we'll talk for about half an hour or so.
Mm-hmm.
And if at the end of that you kind of get a sense of at least kind of going in the direction of being grounded and calm and resourceful, then that will have been a worthwhile use of time, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Cool. Okay, yeah, that's what we'll go for then. Right, okay, so to start with, if you were to wake up tomorrow morning,
Mm.
and somehow a change has taken place in you. So without worrying too much at this stage about how that would come about,
Mm-hmm.
if we just suppose that you'd made that progress overnight.
Okay.
So you're waking up tomorrow as the person that you're hoping to be.
Mm-hmm.
So this is you waking up as the grounded, calm, and resourceful you. Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, what time would you be waking up?
Hmm. Depends what time my son wakes up, I think. I imagine around 7-ish.
Okay. And so this is we're gonna talk about this in detail and kind of like almost in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
So just thinking about it second by second is kind of it. This is you just starting that day.
Okay.
7 o'clock in the morning, as you first open your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
this is before you've got out of bed or anything, you haven't moved yet. You're just kind of coming round. It's just as you're opening your eyes. What would be the first clue for you that you're waking up as you when you're grounded and calm and resourceful?
Okay. But can I have my eyes closed because it helps me
Yep.
to.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And this is not how I normally wake up. This is how I wake up when I'm grounded, calm,
Hmm.
and resourceful. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So I think before I even open my eyes, I'm just gonna take a deep breath in and kind of feel the bed. So I just feel like, okay, I am here. I'm in my bed.
Hmm.
Because I often dream a lot, so I feel like I need to come back to the space that I'm actually physically in, and kind of start becoming aware of the space around me. Um, Cuddle my son, give him a kiss on the head, um, and I think just enjoy that warmth, kind of, like when you're just waking up and the world's not really real just yet. And just breathe that in.
Hmm.
And I think then I do my visualization of my life ahead, because that's something I started to do recently.
Okay.
And actually something I struggle with a little bit. Okay, so back to the moment. Um, yeah, I will focus on visualizing um, my life ahead, um, and kind of reconnecting with my body. So maybe doing a bit of a body scan.
Hmm.
Um, so kind of guiding myself through that, feeling the connection, and I suppose extending that as well into what I used to do in mindfulness meditation. So kind of extending that feeling of um, connectedness to my body, to feeling connected to the world around me. And yeah, and then see what comes next, I think.
Right. Now, so in amongst that, you mentioned cuddling your son, I think.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm
So that would be before you get out of bed.
Yeah, he's in bed with me. Yeah.
Right. Okay. What's his name?
Oliver,
Oliver. And how old is he?
he's 5, just turned 5. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So, now, when you cuddle Oliver, what might be something that he might notice about the way that you're cuddling him, the particular way, which would be a sign to him that you're calm?
Oh, that makes me quite emotional. Um, bloody hell. Um, I think he would feel calm, because I feel like he picks up on my calmness, and he would feel loved and cozy and safe. Safe, yeah, he would feel safe.
Okay. And right, so from his response, how would you be able to tell that he's feeling cozy and safe?
I think he would like feel it in his body. It's that kind of warm feeling when you just feel connected, and it's the hug, isn't it? You just feel held.
Right. Yeah, so what I'm wondering is how you would feel that. So how would you be able to tell from the way that he feels in your arms, kind of thing? What is
Oh,
it that you'll be
he
feeling?
kind of snuggles up to me.
Hmm.
So kind of like gets closer, puts his head on my chest.
Okay.
Um,
Mm,
he puts his arm around me. Sometimes he says, "Oh, I love you, mommy."
mm,
Um, Sometimes he just like snuggles his nose into my chest like he did when he was a baby.
right.
And it's almost like he wants to merge with me. Like it's
Mm,
just, yeah, gets as close as he can.
right. Okay. So then how would you be responding to that?
I embrace him really tight
Mhm.
and snuggle him into me, into my chest. I kiss the top of his head and kind of smell his head.
Right.
And I also feel like I just want to merge with him, and it feels really warm
Mm,
and safe.
okay. Right. So for that to be happening right at the start of the day, just as you're waking up, already what difference would that make for you to be experiencing that right at the start of your day?
Oh, I can feel it already. Like in
Hmm.
this moment, I feel already so much calmer and more grounded. Um, and I think it's just be more positive start, because it's become a bad habit that, especially if I'm woken up by alarm, that the first thing I do is look at my phone, kind of check messages. So this would kind of disturb that. It would stop that from happening. So I feel like the morning would be more present, more grounded, calmer, um, just more in a moment kind of feeling. Give myself that space to actually wake up and get ready for the day mentally
Hmm.
as well as physically. Yeah.
Okay. Okay then. So what impact would that have on the way that you do whatever you do next?
Well, I think I'm a little bit skeptical, but my hope is
Mm,
in the ideal world, if I start the morning like that, my hope is that I could start the morning a bit more in a flow, what I'd like to be doing in the mornings. And that's now I visualized and meditated a little bit to do a breathing exercise. I do the Wim Hof breathing um, to kind of again reconnect with my breath and with my body. Then get my son sorted, so get him breakfast and get him settled with that. And then maybe do some yoga and exercise. Um, and then like prepare my son for going for the day, whether we go into nursery or not, and prepare myself for the day before kind of getting on with whatever is ahead.
Right. Okay. Right. Something I want to pick up on is you were saying like in an ideal world. So a key here is that we're just talking about a change taking place in you. So it may not be an ideal world. It may or may not. But it won't be any different, if you see what I mean. It's not necessarily, we're not talking about anything changing in the world, which has brought about the change in you at this point.
Yeah.
We're talking about tomorrow. So whatever you've got lined up for tomorrow still applies, whether or not your son goes to nursery, whatever you've got on your schedule, all that kind of stuff, still there.
Yeah.
It's still tomorrow. The only thing that's different here is you. The change is taking place in you.
Yeah.
So it might not be an ideal world. It may or may not be, who knows? It may or may not be, but what we're talking about here, what we're supposing is it is kind of like an ideal you to be waking up in that
Yes.
world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree with that. And I think
Yeah,
that's what I meant, because as you're right, it's not so much about what's happening in the outside. It's more, I think I'm questioning why I haven't been doing what
yeah,
I've just said I've been doing. And I think what normally happens is that I wake up exhausted because my sleep is a bit disrupted. And when I try to visualize, I keep drifting off into like dream world. So I get distracted, I get frustrated with that. As I said, sometimes I check my phone and I get caught up in that and completely disturbs everything because I end up lying in bed much longer than I needed to, and therefore don't have enough time to do
mm,
all the other things I wanted to do. So I think when I said in an ideal world is when I'm not doing these things
right,
that disturb what I in my heart actually want to do.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's a bit of a home truth here.
yeah, yeah.
hmm
So it's really kind of, no matter what your situation is tomorrow morning, what we're talking about here is kind of like how you would recognize that no matter what your situation is, you're recognizing yourself as grounded, calm, and resourceful.
Mm,
So I mean,
yeah.
so that's what you've begun to describe already. It's kind of like waking up in that way, doing those things slightly differently at the start of the day. The way you're talking about embracing Oliver, that
Mm,
kind of thing. That's part of you being that person. That's how you'll know that you're calm and
yeah. Yeah.
resourceful and grounded, that kind of thing. It fits with that version of you, if you like.
Yeah.
So keeping that in mind, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, there was you were kind of talking about some next steps there. So it's kind of preparing breakfast and doing yoga and that kind of thing.
hmm
As sort of going into the morning. Yeah, if you think about breakfast, maybe
Yeah.
think of an aspect of making breakfast for you and Oliver. Whatever
Okay, I
comes to
don't.
mind.
Yeah, I don't have a breakfast. I
Right.
don't
Okay.
breakfast.
So we're more talking about preparing his breakfast.
hmm
Okay. I'll tell you what would you be preparing for him?
Uh, Usually what he asks for. So it tend to be either cereal with milk or cereal bar. He's not a massive breakfast person either.
Hmm.
Or if I have like baked muffins or something, so he might have that.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, and kind of give him a drink. Usually in the mornings, that's his time to watch his stuff on a tablet because we don't tend to do it during the day or evening. So that's how he has a breakfast while I kind of sort myself out and do things I need to
Right.
do.
Okay. Okay, so if we go with if he's going to have a bowl of cereal,
Hmm.
if that's something that's likely for him to ask for.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think about making a bowl of cereal for Oliver is something that you're used to doing. You do that, quite often, I
Mhm.
would imagine. This is you doing it on a morning when you're at your most grounded and your most calm and most resourceful.
Mhm.
So that being the case, what might be even slightly different that you might notice about the way that you're making him that bowl of cereal?
It's not so much the bowl of cereal, it's more all the other stuff I tend to do while I'm preparing bowl of cereal, which if I was grounded and calm, I probably wouldn't do. So usually as I'm doing all this prep, I am already either listening to messages or listening to podcasts or watching something to catch up with. Um, so, and I do that really through the whole morning. I'm multitasking. Yeah. And I feel like on a days when I am feeling grounded on a rare occasion,
Mm,
I don't do that. I'm totally focused on what I'm doing and just do one thing at a time.
mm.
Um, hmm, okay. Another home truth.
Right, okay.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what difference would that make to the way that you're preparing his bowl of cereal?
I think I'll be just more present with it,
Mhm.
as well as I think it be kind of smoother, less distracted. Um, I'm probably less likely to spill the cereal everywhere or pour milk that's gone off, which has happened in the past.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'll probably be more present with what I'm doing, which
Yeah.
would contribute to staying calm because pouring cereal doesn't tend to cause anxiety to me.
Mm.
Um, it's more likely to be something I've listened to or watched that would do that.
Mm.
Mm.
So for Oliver to witness you preparing his bowl of cereal in that way, in that really sort of present way, what difference might that make for him?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if consciously he would even pay attention. Bodily, he's definitely sensitive to my moods and to my energy. That's for sure. Um, that's been my experience. If I am like in an anxious energy, he tends to be too. So I imagine it would set his day in much calmer, more cooperative way.
Mm.
um, if if I was in kind of acting with calmness.
Right. Okay. So if we suppose
Mm.
that he picks up on that energy,
Mm.
and so he's noticing that you're doing this slightly differently in a good way,
Mm.
um, then what might you be able to notice in his response that would show you that he's noticed that difference and he's pleased to
Mm.
see that difference?
I think he'll be definitely calm in nature because he can be a bit jittery like me. And as I said, I think he'd be more cooperative, less oppositional when asked to do things like brushing his teeth, for example, or taking his inhaler and stuff. I think if when he's calmer, he's much more to just go with it
Okay.
than fight me on it.
Right. Okay. Um, right. In which case, yeah, for you to kind of recognize him being more cooperative in response to you being present. What might that kind of do for you?
Oh, that will definitely help keep me calmer. Because I get triggered when he's opposing me, and especially if like, oh, we have to go to nursery, we have to like leave soon, and it like delays things like this morning. It stresses me out. Definitely causes me anxiety because um you know, growing up, my mom would deal with it by giving me a slap around the face, and the fear would stop me from being oppositional. Obviously, that's not something I am willing to do with Ollie, and so sometimes I feel like I'm running out of tools. I don't want to coerce him either. I want to bribe him. Not that he is bribable, he just doesn't care. um, so it causes me a lot of stress because I feel out of control. I feel like, oh, like, what can I do here? Like, I just have to be late, and I don't like being late. And yeah, but funnily enough, like, if I just check myself, and offer emotional support in his meltdown, it tends to dissipate much quicker. But that means I first need to get over my stress response, which sometimes is really hard. So I suppose when he's calmer, I am calmer. Therefore, we don't get into this cycle of stress responses. So it just sets up the whole day and much better flow, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let me see. So before we go on now, I want to kind of take a moment to kind of acknowledge what you're talking about in terms of like your one of the words you were using was resourceful, actually.
Mm,
So I mean, this is you describing your resourcefulness.
mm,
So what's it kind of saying about what resources you've got that you are, well, certainly in what you're describing doing, all right, if this is what you were doing, then what would that be evidence of you possessing in terms of kind of personal resources to be doing?
okay. I suppose the resources are my knowledge, my experience as a therapist, as well as therapy. So having had therapy over years and years, um, kind of knowing what I'm meant to be doing in this situation, so it doesn't spiral too far along. Knowing what I need to do for my son to help him to emotionally regulate, and then being able to do that, even though I might still feel dysregulated myself, and kind of almost like regulate us both at the same time, which is not easy. I find that extremely difficult, but also like it's literally in this moment I'm realizing, but that's the resource. That's actually the ability to do that, even though I am dysregulated.
Mm.
That's the resourcefulness. Like, that's a bit of a revelation. That's a pleasant home truth.
Cool.
Because actually what I tend to feel is guilt and shame,
Mm.
because like, oh, I shouldn't be treating him like this. That's not how I want to mother him. In the moments when I lose it a bit, and the shame around, well, I am the one who gives advice to people about how to deal with these situations. I'm not able to do that myself. But actually, you're right. Like I am using the resources within my humanity. Like I'm still human. Like I suppose I can't expect myself to be a robot and never feel emotions and never feel overwhelmed. That'd be unreasonable. I definitely don't expect it of my clients, or my friends, or my son. So why should I expect it of myself? But really, secretly, I do. Like, I expect myself to never lose it and to be constantly calm and collected and always know what to do. Um, Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, this is now added to my resources, knowing that's what I expect of myself, and therefore being kinder to myself in those situations, I think.
Right. Hmm.
Mm.
And let me see. Right, one of the things you were saying is that it's not easy. It's kind of life being what it is. You know, with all the pressures, all the distractions, whatever, you know, with all the things in life that can get in the way of you kind of being your ideal self in any given moment. And yeah, kind of acknowledging the fact that, yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's part of just being a human being is that, yeah, no one is being their ideal self all of the time. Like I say, it's kind of, you know, you do your best. Talking about recognizing your ability to do that, to kind of, you know, certainly at least be trying, certainly to be able to describe how you would know that you're being the mum that you want to be, being the self, you know, the you that you want to be. You're talking about it. The way you were describing it there was it's something that you've got the ability to do in spite of dysregulation. I think the way you put it. So it's a difficult thing to do, and you're talking about managing to do that difficult thing.
Yeah,
So what? So it
most
is
of
it
the time.
yeah, exactly, most of the time. Yeah, I mean everything. I think we can only really be talking in terms of sometimes kind of thing. Everything is, you know,
Yeah,
do
it's
this
definitely
sometimes.
not always,
No way
absolutely
is
not.
always doing
Yeah.
the same thing. Yeah. So yeah, what's so what? I don't know. In your words, what's it kind of saying about you that you have this ability to at least sometimes do it in spite of everything?
Hmm. You're asking me to be positive about myself out loud. um, uh, Especially when it comes to parenting, actually, it's something I do find challenging. What it says about me. I think it says that I'm willing to keep learning. I'm willing to keep getting better at this. I'm willing to admit when I'm not being my best or when things don't go as well as I would like them to. And not let that be the end of it. Like I am still, despite failing relatively often, I still keep striving to do better. Like every new tantrum and meltdown, whether mine or Oliver's, it's an opportunity to do better, to manage it maybe a little quicker, maybe regulate myself a little sooner, maybe respond less loudly. Yeah, until hopefully one day I'll be able to do it before the tantrum even starts, you know? But yeah, for now, I feel like at least I keep going. I'm not giving up. I'm not just like, oh, so I'm shit at this and that's it. Like, I'm not gonna even try get better. I think I'll just, you know, I keep reading the books. I keep having the therapy. I'll keep doing my work. So I think that's what it says about me.
Right. Okay, so what difference does it make for you to recognize yourself as someone who isn't giving up?
There's relief, I think. Because there are definitely moments when I feel a bit stuck and feel like, oh, this, you know, why I keep doing this? Like, you know, maybe this will never change. Maybe I can't change. But then knowing that actually, well, no, I won't give up. Even thinking that I still won't give up. And knowing seeing the work that I see in my clients and my friends,
Mhm.
and they constant changing, that means I have the same ability. That means there is hope. So yeah, I'll just keep going. And therefore I feel relief because that means I'm not stuck.
Okay. Right. And so, right, I'll tell you what, so if you imagine if you were meeting a client for the first time and they were telling you about themselves and they'd just described themselves in the way that you've just described yourself,
Mhm.
then yeah, I mean, what would you be thinking about? What sort of person you're talking with?
I'm talking to my ideal client, someone who is open and yeah, willing to do the work and striving to have a better life for themselves. It's not necessarily even about anyone around them.
Mm.
And you know, I think when we have better life for ourselves, it positively affects everyone around us. But the fact that they're able to see themselves clearly, so they have the awareness of where things are, also where things can get better and when they just can't, and that's okay too.
Mm.
And aware of their tools, but willing to learn some new skills, new tools to manage it if necessary. Then I know they're gonna be all right. Like,
Mm.
it almost feels like they're not gonna really need me all that much, you know? They'll every so often to check in, but like, you've got this.
Right.
You know, you've got this because you've got the right mindset to just keep going and
Right.
ask for help when you need it,
Mm.
and keep going when you're on the right track.
Mm. Okay. Right. Oh, let me see. Right. So
Mm.
now this is the challenge because I want to keep this brief. So, like, and the session itself brief.
Mhm.
We're looking at kind of 5 to 10. Well, I think 10 minutes at the most would
Mhm.
be. I haven't been paying that much attention to my clock, but I think we got 10 minutes would be half an hour. So let me see. Right. I'll tell you what, actually, what we could do at this stage is check in a little with how we're doing in terms of talking about you recognizing yourself as grounded, calm, and resourceful. I mean, that bit we've concentrated on, let's say, a bit on resourcefulness. I mean, yeah, do you feel like that's we're going in that direction where we're this is what we're doing,
Absolutely.
we're kind of you're
Actually,
recognizing
just this conversation
Good.
made me realize that I am resourceful. So I do feel resourceful in this moment
Right.
because it brought it to my awareness,
Mm.
the resources I have access to.
Mm.
And I suppose when I'm calm and grounded, it's easier to access these resources.
Mm-hmm.
But what it made me realize is I always have access to the resources. It might feel a bit harder on occasion, but I always have access to it. And I do access it even when it's hard. So that almost now, that request kind of almost became irrelevant because like, I don't need to add it to it because I already have that.
Mm.
I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm making sense to me, so I suppose that's the important part.
Absolutely.
With the calmness and groundness, I think that's something to strive for because it makes it easier to be resourceful. But I feel like the resourcefulness is there, and it's something I keep adding to anyway because I'm just infinitely curious person. Like I never stop learning. I love learning new things. I'll learn from books, from people, from courses, and I'm doing at the moment 2 courses at the same time, reading 2 books, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Mm.
the influx of resources is continuous. So actually, after this chat, like, I don't feel like that's actually concern anymore.
Good. Okay. Right. Now, so the description, we only talked a bit about kind of how it would look, you sort of waking up, you like, you know, the grounded, calm, resourceful,
Mm,
you know. With more time, we could have had more detail with that. However,
mhm,
it's still, yeah, I mean, you still did get into some sort of significant detail. So, you know, we're describing, yeah, you know, waking up, yeah, like embracing Oliver in that way, what you're kind of feeling, how you'd be preparing his breakfast, even, you know, all that kind of stuff, and like, you know, what was going on between you and the impact it was having on his behavior, which is the impact it has on kind of what you're doing and so on. So we talked, we touched on that. So
mm,
that's a description of what you're hoping to reach.
yeah.
So if we were to think in terms of a scale of like 0 to 10,
Mhm,
we would say that was a 10, because that's kind of the ideal, I guess.
mhm.
So if that was a 10, whereabouts on that scale of 0 to 10 would you say you are generally at the moment?
Like, in this particular moment or, like, this morning?
This morning then. Yeah, generally.
Okay. This morning, actually, this morning was probably about 6.
Okay. So
So
go on.
yeah, I did kind of like try to visualize, but struggle with it.
Mm.
But was actually relatively calm. But then Oli kind of wanted to cuddle a bit longer, and so it kind of, and then I was start to worry about time. So I started getting a little bit anxious. So we got out of bed and got him sorted. While I was doing it, I was catching up on some TV from last night. I can't resist the traitors. So I was watching that while prepping everything and everyone.
Yeah.
And I feel like that actually contributed to then Ollie having a meltdown just as we were to leave, delaying the whole process by 15 minutes and therefore making me late for our call. And I was just so stressed
Mhm. Okay.
because I hate being late. And yeah, it was hard. And it was one of those moments I described, and I was really dysregulated. He was dysregulated. But I managed to step into, okay, I just need to calm him, and gave him a cuddle, and we both managed to regulate and calm down. But that took like a good 5 minutes, you know. So yeah, it was, as I was doing it, I still had it back of my mind. Oh, we need to go, calm down, please. We need to go, you know, like say, yeah, it was a prime example of how we can start kind of all right and then
Mm.
spiral out of control.
Mm.
And I wonder if I didn't watch anything and really just focus on what we're doing, if I was able to perhaps if regulate myself better so he wouldn't spiral so much when he got dysregulated. Obviously, you know,
I
we
would
will never know,
suppose,
but
yeah,
that's my,
sorry. If that's what you managed to do, then I guess you would have given me a higher number than a 6. The fact that you managed to, I think it's sort of step into that, I think was a phrase used, but you know, the fact you managed to do that to the extent that you did is how come it's a 6 and not a 5.
mm,
So what did it take for you to kind of like, you know, recover the situation, to kind of to do what you did to enough of an extent to stop it from kind of getting any worse, from it ending up being like a 5 or a 4 or something? Because even if it wasn't ideal, it was kind of, it could have been worse. And
yeah,
you've already started talking about some of the things you did which stopped it from being worse. So what did
yeah.
it take for you to do those things?
So I think the morning, like it was, as I woke up, my first thought in my head was like, oh, I need to visualize because that's what I decided to do the night before.
Mm.
It's like, you know, I said myself, like, I want to do this every morning now because I know from experience, because I've done it in the past, it's gonna set my day better. Like, I'm just gonna have a better day if I do this every morning. So I started on it, but then because I struggled with it, it kind of threw me a bit. But I did it, so that was a positive. And then when the meltdown happened, I think it was interesting actually, because what happened is like I walked through a gate, and as I walked through the gate, it's almost like the change of, like they talk about walking through like a threshold. It's like reset, and I was like, oh, what am I doing? Like, I'm just making things worse here, like, because I was really riled up. So I turned back and gave him a cuddle and calmed everything down, and within a few minutes we were able to leave. So maybe walking across thresholds is a thing for me with emotional regulation. Actually, that's a good point. And then just walking, the fact that I was, after I dropped him off, I just walked back in silence, and I walked very fast. And it really helped to kind of release that jittery energy, I think. And because I've texted you, I'm running late, I felt like, okay. It's going to be all right. And I just focused on calming myself and breathing. Yeah.
Okay. If we suppose that you, let me see, having sort of start today and sort of arrived in today at about a 6 out of 10. If we suppose that you continue from this point to go in the direction that you're hoping to, only we're just talking about like a little bit to start with, then what would be the sort of thing that you would be pleased to notice yourself doing, which would for you be a sign that you've maybe just gone from like a 6 to a 7, or even just a 6.5, just like a little step? It's kind of like how you'll know you've just made that little bit of progress, that you're a little step closer to, sort of the ideal,
Okay.
calm, resourceful you.
I think the obvious one will be the emotional regulation would be easier, whether mine or my son's. Other signs probably would be just the feel in my body that I feel grounded and calm. And when we go to the higher numbers, that probably would be, I am able to visualize in the morning because my mind is focused instead of all over the place. I'll be able to get us through the morning routine calmly in a focused, present way. Do the things that I want to do in the mornings, like the exercise, like the meditation, the breathing, all that. That would be a good sign that I am very much in a 9/10s.
Okay. So so lastly, I guess, what's something that you've heard yourself say during our conversation this morning, which might be a useful thing, you think, to have heard yourself say in order for you to be continuing in that direction?
I think it was two things.
Right.
It was the resourcefulness, that I am resourceful, and that's it. I have always access to it, no matter how hard it might feel. And the other one probably would be, I am still human, even though I'm a therapist. I am human, and therefore I will still experience human things like overwhelm and anxiety and feeling guilty and ashamed, and they are all emotions that still will be part of my repertoire. And I know that, but it's kind of reminding myself of that, I think.
Okay. In that case, yeah, that's it. I think that's the conclusion of the session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
Ethel.
I'm back. Firstly, I just wanted to thank you both for allowing me to observe, because as a therapist, you never really get to see a session in play. And there were so many things about that session that was just reminded me how powerful therapy can be. And in some ways, I've always described it when I've had therapy before, and when I've had clients kind of explain to me what they've experienced, it's almost like, for me, it was almost like magic. Like I can never find the right words to describe that experience. And I've got a few questions for you both. But firstly, thank you so much, Chris and Kristina, for allowing me to observe your session, because it is a very personal thing. So while Kristina just collates her thoughts and everything else, Chris, I do have a question for you. And I was just wondering, actually, and it's really about your particular practice, if you can explain a little bit more around how solution-focused therapy works.
Yeah. How it works, I think, is speculation. I think it comes down to a theory of change. Most practitioners would say it works by acknowledging like a theory of change. The thing with solution focused that kind of sets it apart slightly is that it's a different type of evidence based. It hasn't arisen from a theory. It's the other way around. It's kind of arisen from observed practice.
Yeah.
And what people have seen in evidence seems to be the thing that is working, that's helped moving people forwards. And then the approach is kind of based on that. It's based on observations of what seems to work. So, and it's basically, I mean, hopefully it's one of those things where it would be apparent from, if you were to replay that session, it would be apparent that kind of, what I'm doing there is kind of taking a particular stance. It's all about having a particular stance towards the client. And a way of kind of summing it up in a way is kind of, it's three things. There's kind of three self-evident truths which we choose to kind of hold dear and really hold on to doggedly throughout a session. And those three things are kind of, so the first one is that whatever the desired outcome is, at the start of the session where I was kind of saying, what are your best hopes for this? What are you hoping that will be different about you? That kind of thing. That's the desired outcome. So whatever it is, the client is capable of achieving that.
Yeah.
And that's something which you really have to hold on to. You've got to not doubt that kind of thing. All right. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that they've kind of got everything that they need in order to achieve that. And yeah, I mean that would have showed up in the bit where we're kind of talking about resources. Really, it's essentially what I'm asking is, how do you know that you can do this? It's kind of, and what sort of person are you that you are able to do this and that kind of thing. And then so the third thing is that change is something that's happening all the time. So if someone is saying, what they're really hoping for is to be really grounded and calm, then you can guarantee there are times when they're grounded and calm.
Yeah.
And I did actually pick up a bit, and in that I went on a slight detour and sort of picked up on the sometimes thing. I kind of stressed that we're talking about sometimes. But that sometimes is a useful thing, and it's part of the thing that makes therapy effective, is acknowledging that no one is one thing all of the time. So if someone is coming into therapy saying, I'm really anxious, I'm here because I'm really anxious, then at least they're not anxious all of the time.
Yes.
And if you're saying, what would you rather be instead of anxious, if the answer is calm, then they're being calm sometimes. They're capable of it. All you need to do is kind of encourage them to be describing themselves so that they can identify as that person. And then in terms of how it works, I think this is there's all sorts of theories as to how it might be working. My best guess towards it is that there's just something about believing in yourself as a particular person. So it's kind of, if you're identifying as someone who's calm, if you've heard yourself describe yourself as a calm, grounded, resourceful person, it's easier for you to believe in yourself being that person. And if you're believing that you can be someone, then you're more likely to be that person, kind of thing. So it's the self-fulfilling prophecy thing, I think. It kind of works along those lines, where it's kind of, it's people kind of go in the direction that they describe during session. And that's it, really.
Brilliant. I mean, that was absolutely fascinating and amazing for me to watch, and so inspiring. just, you know, the way you led this session and the way Kristina responded to it and how she was able to really go with the flow of the conversation to recognizing herself. And it sounds very similar to the work and the therapy that Kristina and I practice, which is NLP. So there's a lot of alignment in how this works. So I'm wondering now, Kristina, how that felt like for you.
Obviously, I try and go into it with kind of like open mind, you know, like just see what happens and not involve my analytic mind, because that's often a problem for me in therapy. And I feel like I've succeeded. Like I really like took a deep breath before it and just went with it. And I felt really safe in Chris's hands. He's very calm.
Yes.
Presence really regulated me. So that was really helpful. I felt listened to and understood, which is always helpful. But I also felt like there was plenty of space for me to just figure it out for myself as well. Like nothing was being forced onto me. And yeah, I've definitely learned some things, you know, there have been some home truths there for sure. So I love being in therapy. Like I love kind of learning more about myself. And this has been definitely one of the better sessions I've had. So my head off to you, Chris. It's not easy to therapy me, I promise you. Like there's plenty of therapists who were pulling their hair out. So yeah, this is definitely it's a definitely therapy I enjoy, like receiving. And as I said, I feel safe, I feel heard, I felt like it has worked in that I've got the outcome I wanted. So not only I feel actually calmer and more grounded and definitely resourceful as a result, I feel now like I now know what the next steps are. Like I have clarity on what I need to do to actually make that happen in kind of everyday life. It's not like I didn't know that before. It's just the clarity of it and kind of the zooming on onto it. So it's not just some kind of idea floating in my head. It's now absolutely concrete plan of action. This is what I need to do. No more excuses. You know, like no more ifs and buts. It is like, no, this is clearly what I need to do. So if I want to be calm in the morning, I have to stop watching telly in the morning. It's, you know, I have to really be strict with myself with the morning routine kind of thing, you know, like, because if I don't do that, then the consequence is going to be, I'm going to feel anxious and dysregulated. So, which is that I want. So it's kind of brought to my attention, like personal responsibility here. You know, this is, as Chris pointed out, it's not about the ideal world. It's what's, you know, the ideal me we're talking about. Like, because really, and he was totally right, like what happens in the world really doesn't influence that aspect of my life. You know, there might be other things coming in that might be causing me anxiety, and sometimes that's, you know, appropriate and that's fine. And if I have that, I feel that if I have that morning grounding, then I can handle that better. And obviously when things are too much, I can always ask for help. I can always have another therapy session or talk to a friend at a time or whatever, you know, but like, it just, yeah, that's what I was talking about, uncomfortable home truths, because like what I heard myself saying was like, Kristina, just pull the finger out of your ass and just start doing the things you know you're supposed to be doing to have a better life. End of. And be kind to yourself when you don't manage.
Thank you. Exactly. And I did recognize the level of compassion that you showed yourself in that session, which is incredible.
I'm getting there. It's not easy one, but I'm getting there. Definitely. It's becoming much easier than it used to be, for sure.
Great.
Yeah.
And I think just, you know, I guess for our listeners and for everyone else, but your honest reflections are so, they're so powerful as well, because, you know, you are brutally honest with yourself about, you know, the things that you want to do and how to get there and actually what actions you need to take yourself. So for me, like, I've been your friend for so many years, and we work together and everything else, and to be able to see you in this element, and this kind of process of change is pretty incredible. So
Thank you. I must say, this is thanks to years of therapy. When I started, I was the master of resistance, the master of denial. Like, it took literally a pneumatic drill to get through to me. So in some ways, Chris had it a little bit easier than, the first therapist I've had.
some of the earlier ones.
Because the path was a little bit trodden for him. But I do feel actually this approach would work then as well, like because it's so kind of working in the present, like in with
Yes.
what you've got, what you need to work with right now. That it's not necessarily about digging deep into some trauma and like deep stuff. Like sometimes it comes up and that's fine, but it then comes up organically instead of looking for it.
Yes.
And that you can actually help people to find the resources they need right now just to manage what's happening for them right now. And I think that's so powerful. Yeah, I really love what you do, Chris. Yeah,
Yeah, thanks so
fantastic.
much.
And you're so good at it as well. Like,
Yeah.
really, I'm not just saying that because you're on our podcast. Like, as you can tell, I'm quite honest person, no filter. If I didn't like the session, you would have known. Like if it wasn't working, I wouldn't be giving you anything. Like it was genuine. Like it really,
Good.
yeah, really
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
And I think,
And I feel like I've got a lot out of it. So thank you for the free session. It's been
yeah.
amazing.
Not at all. Yeah.
But also, Chris, as you did the session with Kristina, I wasn't on camera, so you couldn't see me, but I was going through that process as well. And it still impacted me as much as it did Kristina. Like I can still see myself having those conversations and kind of working through, okay, what would I need? What did my morning look like? How did this work? And Kristina and I have similar morning situations with our children. So it was really applicable, but actually found myself thinking, I need to book a session with Chris. Like I need to have my own session. And it was really, really brilliant to watch. But and I think, Kristina, do you want to add anything else to that before I go on to Chris?
Not really. No, I think
Yeah.
I've been talking for a long time now. I think.
Right. Well, so Chris, I just wanted to know from your perspective, really, how that felt for you as a practitioner.
Yeah. Well, I mean, same as usual. It's a session. It was kind of once you kind of get going, I just do my thing. That was a fairly typical session, I think. It did have a slight. I mean, the fact I know it's being recorded for a podcast makes a
Yeah, it's
difference.
a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
So I went into it more nervous than I would normally, to be honest, because it's putting me in the spotlight as well. But then, yeah, I mean, kind of having let go of that and just thought, well, I'm just going to do a session. Then yeah, it was for me. It's fairly kind of autopilot, to be honest. But then it's taking me years to get to that point. It's
Yeah.
solution focused it's a funny thing. It's very simple.
Yes.
The process is very simple. It's basically asking questions, like I say, from that stance, and that's it. And in terms of kind of like, the techniques, there's only really establishing the desired outcome and then inviting a description of that showing up. That's it. So it's a very simple approach, but that doesn't mean it's easy. It's very difficult to do.
Yes. Yes.
And so I used to stumble and get stuck a lot, and it's taken me years, lots of practice, lots and lots of supervision and training. Yeah, to kind of get to the point where I can be pretty confident I can just kind of do this. So yeah, so it was nice. The thing is, it's something I always enjoy doing. And it's something for me as well, where it's kind of what I find is there's something about working this way. Maybe it's something about having reached a level of mastery. I don't know. If I if I can say that about myself. But it's one of those things where kind of no matter what's going on, what sort of day I'm having, what's going on in my life, that kind of thing. Once I get into a solution focused session, then I'm fine. It's like it's my comfort zone. I know what I'm doing. So it was like that for me. There's some things I want to pick up on, actually
Mhm.
in Kristina's feedback, which were really good to hear. One thing, which is something that I was really hoping, this is why I was like really keen on doing this podcast, was
Mhm.
that she said that she enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And what I was really hoping to demonstrate, because it's something, this is the feedback I get all the time from my
Mm.
clients, is that yeah, generally it is enjoyable. It's a pleasant thing to do, and there's a myth out there, really. There's a bit of an urban
Mhm.
myth that therapy is like a difficult,
Mhm.
traumatic thing in
Yes.
itself to go through, and
Mhm.
you've got to kind of talk about things you've never spoken about,
Mhm.
and you're going to get really upset, and it's just part of the
Mhm.
process, and it's kind
Mhm.
of no pain, no gain, and all that kind of thing. And it's just not true.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, it may be with some very old-fashioned ways of doing therapy, it might be true. With some people, I don't think. I think nowadays, generally, really whatever approach people are using, that probably doesn't hold true so much. And it certainly doesn't with this approach at all. And it's much more common for people to talk about enjoying it. So I was
Yes.
really hoping that that was something that was going to be demonstrated, and yeah, and it was, that this can be an enjoyable process.
And I did get emotional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did shed some tears as well,
yeah.
but
And it's
that
not
doesn't take
necessarily
away
easy
from
as well.
that doesn't take away from the enjoyment. Actually, almost
Mm,
like deepens it. Like
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
because you can, I could
Mm,
finally be like just feel the emotions, and not be kind of
mm,
cut off from my body. So no,
mm,
I totally love the session.
yeah.
Definitely. Thank you.
And then the other thing that it strikes me, and again, this is something that I hear all the time, which I just find really fascinating.
Mm.
It's just a feature of kind of doing this sort of work. It's a really common thing. There's something that people say is that clarity of knowing
Hmm.
what I'm going to do next, which
Yes.
is a really interesting thing, because it's one of the things in a way that makes solution focus difficult. Is holding yourself back from suggesting anything. So
I can imagine.
it's
Yeah.
the opposite of a directive approach. You're not telling anyone to do anything at all.
Yeah.
All you're doing is asking them about themselves.
Yeah.
And yet, all the time, yeah, people, even though you haven't suggested anyone try anything, or you haven't got any ideas about that, if you have, you put them to one side. You just carry on asking questions. People, yeah, quite often say, "I know what I'm going to do."
Yes.
It's kind of, yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to do next, and that kind of thing. It's really interesting. It's a really fascinating thing to see. I mean,
Hmm.
that's testament to, like I say, people
Yes.
already have what they need to achieve what they want to. It's testament to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
All
Absolutely
right.
brilliant.
I think we're kind of coming to end of this, I think. It's been a long session. um, but yeah, Chris, you definitely haven't heard the last of me.
Or me.
I'm not someone who needs therapy like every week, but I definitely need it every so often. So now I know who to call.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I like to switch things around, and I really benefited from this so much that I'd like to repeat the experience in the future. And yeah, it's been really lovely having you here and being able to showcase, hopefully, to people what therapy can look like. Obviously, everyone is different. Everyone's going to have slightly different experience, but that it can be really calm, almost joyful experience that, even in one session, you already can get some results. Some
Mhm.
things just will take a little longer, and that's okay too. And again, there is no fast rule on this. No one knows how long it's going to take. But I feel like, especially in an approach like this, I feel like you will always get something out of each session, that you will always walk away with a little bit of, oh, I can do this bit differently, or I feel a bit better. And I think it's such an important thing. And I also believe that therapy offers something that no friend ever can.
Mhm.
And that's that emotional impartiality,
Mhm.
that unconditional regard, the lack of opinion and judgment. And although it can be very helpful to speak to, loved ones and family, friends, when you're in crisis and you just need to talk to someone, great. But I think therapy just brings something else. Like it's just that this, the way we can hold space because we're not involved in that. We don't have that emotional attachment to the person, yet we have really positive regard of the person and we want the best for them. I do believe that everyone should have therapy. It should be like just a
Mandatory.
matter of fact thing that we just get, like we get breakfast or we go to gym or whatever. Like it's just something that should be available much more easily than it is at the moment. But I think these kind of conversations, these kind of examples will definitely help to bring it further to kind of public conscious, because it is easy to think that everyone's already into it because we're surrounded by it in our life. But actually, you know, as I said at the beginning, I don't think that's the case yet. There's still a lot of people who are scared of it, who don't believe in it, who don't think it's for them, you know, that they have kind of like misconceptions about
Yes.
therapy. So hopefully this is the first or one of many steps to dispel that and make it more approachable and accessible for people. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Oh, I need to plug my service, don't I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, anyone who's listening to this, if they wanted to book me, if they wanted to find out more before deciding whether to book me, then yeah, probably the easiest thing to do is just go on your website browser and just type in, it's just chrisward.life. That's my
And
website.
it
It's
doesn't
all-
even have to be that complicated. We will put links under this podcast. You can just go and click on it, go straight there. And we also will be sharing Chris's Instagram and as well as website and any offerings on our social media when we releasing this podcast too. Yeah, get in touch. He's amazing. I can vouch for that.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much, both.
And thank you very much, listeners, for being with us today. I hope you've enjoyed as much as we did. And don't forget to rate our podcast because it helps with the algorithms. Of course, share it so we can reach as many people as possible because you never know who might find this helpful. And of course, most importantly, listen. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.